Hello, Anna. This is Anna Kršinić-Lozica, and thank you for being here with us. We had a few amazing meetings during my research in Zagreb, and we have some fruits of these meetings as a research conducted by Anna at this moment. I think it's, well, almost done. Anna, she's the researcher and curator currently implementing her PhD, dealing with the memory of the Jasenovac camp, traced through its representations in visual arts, film, literature, and architecture at the Faculty of Humanities and Social Science, Zagreb University. She accomplished part of her doctoral research called the Institute in Science Socials in Paris. She has been working for various NGOs, Open Space, Catapult 6, and institutions, Croatian Academy of Science and Art. And recently, she was a research leader on the project of sculptor Vera Kralj, coordinated by JV Atelier Kralj and the Croatian Museum of Architecture. Her recent publications include Beyond Visible, the public sculpture of Vera Kralj, and New Memory of the Old Trauma, the Diary of Diana B. and Dara of Jasenovac. And today, Anna will present a case of the estate and the legacy of Vera Kralj. This is the archive connected really strongly with the Zagreb, so I believe it will be a nice journey for us to be there for a moment. So Anna, thank you again for accepting this invitation. I really, really appreciate, and the floor is yours, so yes.
Thank you, Marika, for a kind introduction. So let me just share. Okay, do you see my PowerPoint? Okay.
Yes, we can see.
Perfect. So I will talk today about Vera Kralj, that Marika mentioned, a Croatian artist, sculpture primarily, that was active in second half of 20th century, but also the first decade of the 21st century, and also about our work on establishing an archive. Let me start with her atelier. So Vera, she finished Academy of Fine Arts in it was early 50s, in 52, and then she actually went to Paris for additional postgraduate education at Académie des Beaux-Arts, and then she returned in 1953 and started immediately working as an artist. She got her atelier very early. It was in 1956, and from then on, it was her main place where she worked, and also where she had a lot of guests and people gathered around her. So it was some sort of, let's say, specific place, let's say open at atelier, not just a place where she would go to concentrate and work, but it was also a place where she would hang out with people, talk with them. So it was really some sort of very relaxed atmosphere there. And why I wanted to start with this atelier, it's because now it is preserved as it was, very similar, and it's still active in a way. So the legacy of Vera and the whole oeuvre that she made is now led by an NGO that is called Living Atelier Kralj, that is trying to do two things. To, on one hand, to preserve Vera's work and to kind of presented to the broader public, but also to engage in different type of activities that are not necessarily linked with the artist's work, but that are also gathering people in the same place as Vera was doing during her lifetime. So the story about Vera Dijs Kralj is quite interesting in the sense that she was, during her lifetime, she was recognized as an artist. So she worked professionally all her life. So she started producing art in very early 50s. She also worked as an art teacher in primary school, but it was for several decades, and after that she just focused solely on her artistic career. So she had numerous exhibitions in Croatia and ex-Yugoslavia, and also in Europe, and sometimes even in South America and in Africa. But and she also obtained numerous awards, but nevertheless, she remained, let's say, invisible in the sense of in the discourse of art history. So there is no monograph, or there is no like the kind of collection of Croatian sculpture of the period when she was active that actually mentions her. So she's kind of remained outside of the art historic discourse, and this is something that we are trying to change in while working on her archive. So one of the, well, let me start from the beginning. So her early works in 1950s were, as you can see here, this is her first public monument. Well, one of the first public monuments that she made in one small village near Zagreb, and it is close to the style of socialist realism. And she actually got this execution of the work because she was well connected with that area, since she was born in a city nearby. But the interesting thing is that she the whole her life she worked on different types of sculptures. So chamber sculpture, but also she worked on monuments. But she rarely got the occasion to really have her monuments put up in a public space. So we do have a lot of sketches and projects for various types of monuments that she applied to the different contests that were held in ex-Yugoslavia for various locations, often dedicated to the World War II. And she collaborated with architects, almost female architects, but not exclusively, on those projects. And this is the example of another project also in early 60s, when you can see how her her poetic changed a bit. So after this early and mid 50s, when she was close to the socialist realism on this monumental scale, she removed more towards the, let's say, more abstract, but not completely abstract, but more abstract, let's say, way of approaching to the topic. And what is interesting here is how she always, in this, let's say, early 60s and also until early 70s, she had, it was the period in Croatia, especially on the Zagreb scene, of kind of cutting with the poetics of socialist realism and introducing introducing abstract art, and there were lots of groups of artists like Exat 51 or later Gorgona that were more conceptual, etc., that were exclusively male groups, and also they kind of made this kind of breakthrough on the visual level with this poetics of social realism. But it's interesting that when we talk about Vera's work, she was never part of any kind of artistic group, or we can even say artistic trend of the time. So she never really started to work completely in this type of abstract style. She always remained on this border between figuration and abstraction, and kind of playing with it. And for example, this is one of her projects. It was for Skopje, for the monument in Skopje, and she and her colleague architect, they got well, it was second prize, but there were no first prize. So actually, their monument was to be executed. But unfortunately, there was this terrible earthquake in Skopje, and then the whole project was cancelled. But also here on the right side, we can see the competition design for another monument. It was for a small village, Leprovica, also near the area where Vera was born, when she also kind of, this is her first proposal that is more, let's say, kind of poetic interpretation of weeping mother and a father to the fallen victims of fascism. But interesting thing here is that this project was kind of rejected because it was considered to be too abstract, and then actually they wanted Vera to make a monument, and she actually did it in the end, but she was told that she has to do it like more in a more conventional way. So at the end she put up a figure of a weeping mother that is more closer to the figurative approach, but also it still plays with all this kind of abstract moments. And then in mid to late 60s and in 70s and on, Vera started to experiment with electroplating process. So this is something that is very peculiar and very characteristic of her whole oeuvre. And that's what she actually did. Is she had a bathtub in her atelier where she combined all these chemicals to make this electroplating process, but she didn't use it in a conventional way. So she used it as in a way that was quite experimental. So she didn't use it to kind of make very thin coating and elegant coating of her sculptures. On the contrary, she would purposely leave an object in this kind of chemical solution in a bathtub for longer than it should be there, until it would start to a little bit dissolve and have a kind of very rough surface, and it would change color. So she would kind of very deliberately combine a chance and also let's say governed approach to creating these sculptures. And here you can see also one of her well, it's not really a recipe, but this is a book where she would kind of write down what exactly she put in the solution. And you can see that every date it's actually a different combination of chemicals. So this is kind of, she never talked about her recipes. So this kind of little book is actually very, very valuable in that sense. So we can really reconstruct what she did. But it's interesting to see that actually she kind of wrote them not before she started to work, but after. So she would really kind of embrace the chance in the process, and then she would just write it down. She also started at the same time producing jewelry, and her jewelry, it was mainly necklace and brooches and pendants, sometimes also earrings or rings. They were also produced in the very similar way as her sculptures and reliefs in metal. She often used copper as a material, but not necessarily. For example, here on the right side at the bottom, you can see something that is actually a flower that she she just took it from the nature and put it whole in the chemical solution, and then it kind of galvanized around this plant, and actually the plant stayed inside. But she also started to experiment with color, with enameling. We found a lot in her among her papers. We found lots of books about enameling, actually, and how and we could, and her also writings about how to use it very specifically in specific occasions. So we could see that she really that this process of galvanization and of enameling was really kind of very long process. So her it was something that really lasted, and she would always change something and add something, and really it was really very well thought. And what is also here interesting is that sometimes the principle of working on her jewelry was the same as her chamber sculpture. So her reliefs or sculptures were made in the same way. So it's not that she kind of approached the jewelry in some sort of different way. And also it was while working on this segment of her opus, it was really difficult sometimes to kind of know the exact datation of a piece of jewelry, because she often kind of would go back to some old pieces and she would remodel them or redone them, or she would do something new on them. So she really had this kind of very processual approach to making art, where things wouldn't be finished once for all. She would just take it 10 years after or 15 years after. Oh, I could add something here or add something there, and then she would really kind of put another enamel or galvanize something, or I don't know, put a silver on it or gold. So it's quite actually complex approach. And also we consulted some of the artists who are also in the jewelry making, who knew Vera, and who kind of to help us with detecting the materials that were used, because she often used metal, and very often copper, but we're not sure. Sometimes it can be another type of metal. She used the silver and gold plating, and it was really and then we were hoping to get an answer. Okay, this necklace is made of, I don't know, this and this, but it was actually, we didn't get this answer, because experts told us that sometimes it's really not, that there's so many layers of procedures that were done on the one piece of jewelry that is kind of almost impossible to detect what she actually started with. I mean, we would have to kind of scratch it to see what is under, but of course we weren't prepared to do so. She also used another materials like glass, and then she made fusion and kind of combined glass with galvanization. Sometimes she even did the jewelry in specific type of wood or some sort of stones. But here you can see sculptures. that are, well, you can see that they're quite different. Those on the left side are earlier works. The first one is from 63. It is one part of the relief that she put up in the women's prison, actually in Lepoglava. And this wooden one is made in 65 as a model for a monument that was never realized. And then this on the right side, these sculptures are from 80s, when she started more to work with terracotta, and this type of style was kind of stayed with her through the 90s and early 2010s. So what you can see here is kind of that she didn't have one very consistent poetic that was the same all the time. She really liked to experiment and change different approaches to making art, different materials. It was not really constant. And then she was more figurative in the 80s and 90s than she was earlier, but it was never kind of made as a rule. This is one of the motives that she really liked, the motive of the witch. She kind of became obsessed with the motive in the 1980s and through the 1990s. And we have it in really very different formats. So in sculpture, in proposal for monument, in souvenirs, drawings. And it's really interesting to see how she actually, she was really eager to put up a sculpture, a monument to the witch from the Grich. This is the fictional character from Marija Jurić-Zagorka's novel that is kind of symbol of the old Zagreb town. And she, in the very early 90s, she proposed on 3 different occasions, she proposed 3 different locations for the witch. But it's also, for us, was very kind of interesting to see how she would never stay only in one scale. Let's say she would always go to different scales. So when she was proposing a project for the monument, she was also making a chamber sculpture with the witch, and sketches with the witch, or even kind of congratulation card with the witch. And then also she proposed the souvenirs for the city of Zagreb that would be in the shape of witch. And this is something that is really characteristic of her work, that she always kind of shifts between scales, from the smallest to the largest, and there is never very, and the approach is the same. So there is no kind of different methodologies of work or ways of thinking when she does souvenir, or when she does a proposal for a monument. So now I'll go to our work with the archive. As you could already see, her legacy is consisted of very different types of works. Although she was a sculptor, she really used different materials and different approaches, etc. And also, so we have here from the on the left bottom, from the project for the monument to August Šenoa in Zagreb, to this is one small souvenir, bell-shaped souvenir, on which it says Zagreb, so this was proposal for a souvenir. But the real revelation was actually that she wrote poetry, and she kind of used it as some sort of in a dialogue with her visual work. So it was some sort of communication between the visual and the textual that really remained hidden, let's say, in her work. And also we found lots of poems that were written by her friends, poets. Some of them were would dedicate a poem to some of her works, or she would sometimes use one of the poems as an inspiration for her work, or she would sometimes, as here, when she was in Groznan, a small village in Istria, an artist colony, where she produced some of her jewelry pieces. She also wrote a poem about it and also referred to it later with sketches. And also we found some quote. There are lots of notebooks in her as a part of her legacy, and it's really interesting to go through this notebook because we found a lot of quotations that she used as an inspiration for her working process, or some of her thoughts that were just, she would just write them down, and they can be really telling about her work and about how she approached the whole this creative process. And for example, here I took this quotation as a title of the presentation about reality that has more than just one dimension, for example, but there are really dozens of citations like this. These are photos actually from our latest project that Marika mentions, that was actually funded by Museum Susch, and here we actually, what we are doing here is here we are focusing on jewelry. But what I forgot to mention is that since this whole archiving process is done in quite, let's say, precarious and unconventional conditions in an NGO, so outside of the institutions, we had this specific way of organization where different people, different researchers and curators would kind of took one part of her work, one segment, let's say, of her work, and then just work on it. For example, I worked on her projects for monuments. A colleague of mine, Ivana Završki, she worked on the sketches for sculpture, and she also did a master thesis on that. Then we had, before us, there was Ana Maria Petricevic, who kind of collected and made the digitization of her chamber sculpture and her drawings, and now we have for this a project on jewelry. We have also Karel Lebhaft as our new member who also joined us in doing this part. So it's kind of, let's say, a very long-term process when everybody is kind of doing each one step at a time and just doing one segment of her work. But little by little, we actually did quite a lot so far, and the main goal is to make inventory list with all the main archival data and to kind of digitize everything, and we would like to make it publicly available on a website or maybe some sort of digital platform that would be open to everyone. And also, of course, the main goal is also to show it to the broadest public and to make exhibitions and publications. So this is kind of the main idea behind this NGO, to really kind of to put Vera Kralj to kind of make her visible again, to kind of to interfere with this patriarchal art history discourse that really omitted her completely. So these are just, small steps that are we are making. And this is also our colleague Sonia Pavin. She restored a few sculptures, and here you can see how she's working on a wooden model for a monument. This was restored for the exhibition that we have in Croatian Museum of Architecture, and she really did an amazing job, because unfortunately some of the sculptures are starting to decay, especially those that are really sensitive figurative, like made of wood, for example, or we have some models that are kind of really started to have mold, and also the paper is something that needs to be preserved. So we are kind of trying very slowly but steadily to kind of also keep these artworks from decay. And this, just as maybe some final example. Also, one of the goals is to maybe try to put some of her sculptures in the public sphere. So there were, for example, a few busts to the heroes from the World War II that were put up in some villages nearby Zagreb. That were during the 90s just removed, and we had an effort talking with people from with the mayor or with the people from that are kind of from the museum, to trying to kind of get them out of the depots and maybe put them or in the museum or in the public space and make them visible. And this is actually a project that Vera did, proposal for a sculpture that she did in early 80s that are now actually we're trying to put up in Dugo Selo, a city where Vera was born, and it seems that it will really be realized. But what is also interesting here is that this sculpture is very ambiental sculpture, so it's some sort of a sculpture that corresponds to a very specific location in that park in Vrnjačka Banja, when it was made as a model there, as some sort of sculpture that corresponds to existing tree. And then there is a path that goes around the tree, and you cannot see it here, but there is also a bench where people would kind of sit under that tree. So, and here on the right side we have a wooden model, but actually the main sculpture was to be made carved in stone. And here we have this problem, which is really kind of important problem when it comes to Vera's sculpture. She really always interfered with her sculptures after they were cast. So, for example, when she did something in bronze, it would never be just plain bronze. It would be kind of she would add some sort of color on that, or when she would work in terracotta or in metal, it was always something that she would kind of something that she would put her touch on it finally. So there is no easy way in reproducing, in casting her sculptures as original artworks. So because they would, it just wouldn't look like she would do them. So, but this is also something that we are aware of. And then, for example, in this sculpture, it would be done with some sort of awareness of that, and we didn't know that it's kind of intervention that is based on her project, but not really as an original artwork by Vera. But this is also maybe a topic for another discussion that goes to the question of originality and authorship, but maybe we can leave it for some other occasion. So yeah, that would be it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anna, for sharing with us so many information about her. And also I can see, and I'm super happy because it looks like some new material is appearing now during this research you're working on. So thank you again, and I will have some questions to you, but after the next presentation we have.